Good evening and welcome to another all-time high live stream. Bitcoin currently trading up around $123,000 after a new all-time high this week. We're approaching a record weekly candle close and we have some incredible charts to share with you tonight. So if you're new, please like the stream. If you're not in CC Pro, I have dropped a link in the description and in the chat. But we're going to cover loads tonight. We've got some members requests as well. And we are going to be all over some of the latest news and what's coming up this week in crypto. Right, if we let's start with the Bitcoin all-time high. So let's jump down to the daily. We can see that earlier today, overnight, as everybody was probably sleeping, Bitcoin made a new all-time high, reaching 125,700 and we'll call it $80, breaking through the previous all-time high set in August. And despite everybody's fears, probably 2 weeks ago, we are now back at all-time highs. So the market Sunday, can't really trust a Sunday pump, can't really trust Sunday market moves, has sold off a little bit as we approach the US futures opening. They open later tonight. Normally we actually see the opposite. Normally we pump into them and then sell off when they open. So to me this is a bit of a bullish sign, but until the US stock market's open Monday morning, I kind of don't get too excited. I'll talk about why this could be slightly different this weekend and why we may see a pump overnight. But very bullish. We are looking very strong. Q4 just began a few days ago, and we're already flying, as we've said all year. So on the weekly, could see massively bullish candle. I think we're going to close up around 10%. So we're up 9.6, so we need it to be above $123,400 for it to be above 10%. It's going to be a record weekly close unless something disastrous happens in the next few hours. We've got 4 hours 50 to go. And what's even more bullish is the Bitcoin futures chart closed at $123,600 on Friday. So if we close below that, we're going to create a CME gap to the upside. That is always way more bullish than to the downside. And we also get the chance to close these gaps, which normally happens pretty quickly. So for me, charts look bullish. Everybody seems to understand where the market's going in Q4. There is still a lot of bearish voices out there. We'll talk about that shortly as well. But let's run through some of the main charts. Ethereum back above $4,500. Kind of lagged Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance is showing some strength. That's to be expected. This looks kind of like Wyckoff. Spring back test. And then we're just going to consolidate before we absolutely smash through the $5,000 area, which I think could come in the next 2 weeks. I think Bitcoin will lead in the short term. XRP back up at 310 over the weekend, or Friday I think it was, and then dropping down 295 right now. I do think dominance is going to kind of sit around that 60% level. I think Bitcoin could lead in the next week or so. And then we'd probably move into ETF season, and that's where we see dominance fully reverse. But right now, everything looking very nice. BNB still up at those record highs, $1,154 for BNB. Insane performance. Now, hopefully, you've been with us since the beginning. But if we just cast our memory back, this yellow box, I'll leave this on the chart forever. This is the short box. This is where we were being told every stream in CC Pro on Twitter that we should be short in BNB. It was going back to $40. Everybody was calling for us to short BNB down here. And we kept saying that you don't short at key support, and you also don't short on such negative news. Negative news was literally CZ was going to jail, Binance was going to collapse. There was so much bad press, and we are up, almost 6x now from those points. So, yeah, Solana done a very similar thing. I think it was trading at $13. It's now obviously up at $227. So, yeah, the altcoins lagging a little bit, but that's fine. Bitcoin dominance back up at 59%. Quite a bullish weekly close for Bitcoin dominance. What I would say is the higher this gets as Bitcoin rises, that's actually not bearish. That's actually really bullish for the rotation. What you don't want to see is Bitcoin dropping and Bitcoin dominance rising, because that's really bad for altcoins. But if Bitcoin goes on 125, 130k and dominance creeps up, that's fine, because the rotation is going to be massive, and it'll just be that tidal wave back into crypto. Total 3, we'll cover the altcoin markets shortly. Let's check in on Borg. So Borg had an amazing week, breaking up above the 60 cent level, up 22% on the week, dropping back a little bit. I've still not seen much confirmation that those buybacks have really kicked in or even begun. After 24 hours, they had around $60,000 worth of fees to start the buybacks. I'm not sure if they've started doing them. I need to double check, but once they kick in properly, I think we are going to see a massive move for Borg, because a lot of the supply is now locked up. On top of that, if you were going to take profit around the 60 cent level, you've probably done that, so sell pressure around this area will be pretty much eliminated at this point. And then you've got huge, they must have like, I don't know, $150,000 to $200,000 worth of buy pressure to put into the market. So I'll be interested to see the impact of that in the next few weeks, days, months. It's going to be a long-term game, but I think once they really kick off the buybacks, we're going to see almost instant moon for the token, because I just don't see where 100k, 200k worth of buy pressure goes in this chart. It's just going to absolutely send it. So yeah, very exciting. Let's quickly cover some more. Let's have a look at gold. So gold, another new record weekly high. I think it got to 3,900 at one point, closing the week at a record high. Silver, for anybody that's been following, me and Deck have been talking about silver for ages. I actually bought somebody silver. They might be in the chat. Actually, I bought them silver just over a year ago. It was $22 at that point, and it's obviously up more than double since then. But if you look at silver, we need to go to the monthly time frame. Maybe we could do it in the weekly, but we are at the record high candle close from May 2011, but we're at the 1980 all-time high. So silver's at a very, very key level. If this breaks, it's going to be an insane move, and it's a massive signal to markets. And then obviously the Russell, we'll come to the Russell. There's a lot of, not that Russell, I've saw his name mentioned already, not that Russell. The Russell 2000 at all-time high, record weekly close on Friday, trying its hardest to break out, and I think crypto is going to explode higher when this moves. I think small caps are going to be the story of the next 6 months. So lots to cover tonight. Let me jump out the chat, see who's in, see who we have got. CG first tonight. Lewis Glasgow will be raging unless he's changed his name. We have bull or no bull. That is a question. It's certainly a bull run. Lewis Glasgow's a bit late. What's happening, pumpers? Are we going into a bull in Q1 2026? Let's see. XRP to the moon. You're not bullish enough. Yeah, I would argue we're the only ones that have stayed bullish for the last 12 to 18 months when everybody else is flip-flopped. We'll maybe cover that later. We'll talk about Galactica, we'll talk about Borgie, we'll talk about Borg, and Jamie doesn't want silver to rotate because he wants to rotate his crypto profits out of silver. Smart, to be fair, but I think it's too late, unfortunately. And then Deck and Dawn are in as well. So let's have a look at some interesting charts, shall we say, and then we'll cover the news, and then we'll cover BCB, who's getting a lot of heat, poor guy. But yeah, we'll touch on why he's bearish and why there's maybe a disagreement. But if we look at Bitcoin, for me, this is a massively bullish weekly candle. Obviously, that goes without saying. But I think the biggest thing is it's coming right at the start of Q4. Now, the charts will tell their own story, but for me, one of the biggest reasons why this exploded the minute Q4 hit is if you look at gold for the year, for the 12 months, or the 10 months so far of 2025, gold's performing at 45%. The stock market, the S&P 500 is only performing at 14%. If you're a hedge fund and you manage $100 billion worth of clients' funds and you underperform gold, what are they paying you for? Anyone in the world can go buy gold. They pay a hedge fund to diversify, to manage their money in the market day in, day out. They expect performance. And in my opinion, just based on everything I've read, listened to over the last 6 to 10 months, is hedge funds are massively underpositioned to crypto and Bitcoin. And now they realise the race is on to get their performance level ahead of gold before the end of the year. Gold's not the trade right now, it's up too high. So the performance gains aren't going to be massive over the next 3 months. The stock market's at all-time highs. Tesla has moved really nicely recently. Nvidia's up like 13x since ChatGPT came along. Is there multiple X returns in the next 3 months from those stocks? Probably not. Where's the biggest gainer? Where can you make back your year? It's crypto. It's Bitcoin. And also, they all know if they all pile into crypto, they can move the market because it's a smaller market. So for me, that is why I think we're going to see a massive Q4, and it's going to be institutional driven rather than retail driven. Let's be serious. Retail isn't moving a $2.2 trillion asset. It needs that institutional capital, and I think that institutional capital is going to come from big funds that maybe are under allocated but also need to now outpace gold over the next quarter to finish the year strong. So I think that's going to be massive. Also think that regulation's going to help. There's going to be flows into crypto. And then we've got the rotation out of stocks, which I believe will begin in the next 2 weeks as earnings kick off, as people chase that kind of final payday before the end of the year. So Bitcoin, $123,000. I think we'll get another move this week. This kind of pullback over the last few hours, I think it's more than healthy on a Sunday night. And it's really nothing if we think about we're still higher than we were before Saturday evening. So yeah, I think it's just about patience. I said to somebody in CC Pro, so I'll cover what CC Pro is if you're new to the stream, but I spoke to somebody earlier on Saturday or Friday, and they were saying should they be entering and should they be buying. Now I do think dips are for buying, so I'll say that, but what I was trying to show them was you don't buy after 4 or 5 days of constant green and the market just frothy. You want to wait for that pullback. So if we do get a bigger pullback, maybe like 3 or 4% over the next few days, which I think is highly unlikely, but if we do, that will be a great buying opportunity. I think it was Drift we spoke about. And as you can see, it's up quite high since we entered the trade. I think our average position is about 72 cents. So do you really want to buy up at 90 cents? I'd probably wait and see if it pulls back or look for other opportunities in the market. Connor saying he can't believe everyone's going to be loaded. Yeah, that is the plan. That is literally the goal. That is why we are here. Yeah, Mark, I think MV will have its day. And Vantage TG will be in October. We'll have an update next week on the full kind of roadmap for TG and Vantage as well. All right, let's jump through the news and then we can do more Q&A and then we'll cover BCB. Let's have a look. So let's start with this. So Bitcoin balance on exchange reached 2018 lows over the weekend. More withdrawals coming. I think ETF inflows were huge last week. So that's obviously bullish for price, and it does cause a massive supply squeeze. I think we've been kind of talking about a supply squeeze coming for 2 years. This whole downtrend since August 2022. I think the difference right now is the selling's kind of ran out, and that's why we're seeing price moving so aggressively. As anyone that wanted to take profit on the way up, any of the big whales, any of the historical big whales, they've taken their profit. They're done. They're selling. ETF outflows slowed down last week, so profit taking has happened. The next profit taking level is going to be probably up closer to 150 to 155k, I reckon. 175k is the next level. So I do think selling wise, we're not going to see massive outflows at, we're not going to move up to 130k and then see massive waves of selling. People are going to want to wait for higher prices, in my opinion. All right, let's have a look. So Bitcoin Magazine saying, reporting Michael Saylor didn't buy last week, but his portfolio is up 9 billion in the week because of the price move in Bitcoin. This is bullish for two reasons. One, he's basically returning massive amounts of value to his shareholders. Two, the yield on one of his products is now jumped to 10.25%, and he is also suggesting that he's probably going to be buying more Bitcoin. So the fact that Bitcoin jumped to all-time high without Saylor buying is hugely bullish. I also think once people start to see his earnings again this quarter, there's going to be no reason why he's not including the S&P 500. We saw what it did to Robinhood's price, and people are going to FOMO in. If you're in Wall Street, if you're a hedge fund, why would you not be allocated to something that gives you a 10% yield? It just is crazy. And also, the more of these products that are on the market, so Michael Saylor is the only one that's doing it right now, but I'm not here to beat up on property investors, but if I can get 10% just by parking my money in a stock, then I'm not going to go through all the hard work to generate whatever the return is on property these days. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest disruptors that we see, and no one is planned for it. I think generating yield from Bitcoin and crypto over the next 10 years will massively disrupt the property market, and I don't think MD's prepared for it. But that's a side note, and we'll get into that another time. Kobayashi letter, silver's up 63% in the year, up over 2.7 trillion. Bitcoin breaking new all-time high, and the S&P has its best run in history. The reason all this is happening is the average person is waking up to the fact that AI is coming for their job, they're not getting paid enough, inflation's crippling them, and it's never been easier to access investment information, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be through AI. People are waking up to the fact that owning assets is the only way to get ahead in life, and that's why you're seeing retail break records of their investment. So in April, retail investors were 35% of the buy the dippers. That was the highest level in history, and it's only going to continue, because why would you pay somebody a percentage when you probably get better investment advice going on Twitter and researching using AI? Why would you pay an investment advisor? Government shutdown is obviously in full effect. It's forecast to last 3 weeks. The fact that 0 people seem to care tells you how ineffective government really is. We'll kind of skip over that. It's not too important. And then ETF news. So ETF news, I think, has been massively underestimated by the market. Altcoins have barely moved. I truly believe ETFs are going to be what causes the alt season. We're not going to get to $3 or $4 trillion altcoin market cap through retail stimulus checks. It's just not going to happen. We need the multiple billions that's going to come through institutional adoption and ETFs. And you see Rick Shares on Friday filed for 21 new ETFs. If it's in the top 200 cryptos, it'll probably have an ETF within the next 6 months. And then you add in all the different gaming ETF, the DeFi ETF, the America-made ETF. There's just going to be thousands of different baskets of ETFs. That's going to create massive pools of capital that are going to come out in the market, and it's going to send altcoins crazy. And that's why I've said for months on this channel, on streams, in CC Pro, people are not bullish enough because they're planning to sell way lower than I think some altcoins will go. And we can talk about that later. So that's pretty much the news. Let's see what's happening in the chat. There's some decent questions coming in by the looks of it. We'll talk about Galactica in a second, but I don't know too much to say, to be fair. Thoughts on Hedera? Yeah, let's check Hedera, because I think there's a lot of chat that the Hedera ETF is coming. I mean, let's take this off because it's clearly not valid anymore. Pretty much just in this kind of fallen wedge pattern. Still relatively in a downtrend, you would say. But it did have that big move up. So for me, let's have a look at the fibs. I think Hedera will do really well. I think it was one of the ones listed as the kind of America-made cryptos. So yeah, kind of in no man's land at the moment. Still technically in a downtrend until we put in a new higher low. So for now, we just need to wait till this trend kind of breaks. We get if we could put in a higher high, so above 23 cents, then it would start to look a bit more bullish. But for right now, I think the 200 MA looks like it could get hit. Let's see what the weekly looks like. Yeah, double bottom, pretty much retraced back to the candle top from the double bottom. So maybe that's it kind of bottoming out, and that would be the bottom for Hedera before we go up. But yeah, bullish on it long term. It's not something I hold. I think I've got some somewhere, but it's not something I've really been buying. But I think it'll do well. I think it's one of those ones that gets thrown around with ETFs all the time. So yeah, I think it'll do well. All right, so Lewis says, what do I think of Galactica? So Galactica was an alpha deal on SwissBorg. It was an early deal. Their valuation when they first released it was huge. From what I understand, and to be fair, I was busy on Friday when it launched. From what I understand is the valuation was huge. It was way higher than they would ever be able to, kind of realize at TGE. So they half the valuation. So they give you double the tokens that you should have got. If I look at mine, so just to be transparent, I invested $7,000 in Galactica. I got 7.5% like everybody else on Friday, and I got $500 roughly. So if that plays out, so say the price stays the exact same, if that plays out, then over the course of it, I'll get $6,700. So I'll be down $300 on it. Now, how realistic that is, all I would say is these early deals are very high risk. I think the team have realised their valuation was crazy and they've tried to take action. I think all anyone can really do is hope that the partnerships and the actual momentum that they've been talking about. I listened to a Spaces a few weeks ago, and they have some stuff going on with BNB. If that pulls through, then the token could do well. But yeah, it's one of those. The other thing is the distribution of the tokens is very frustrating. So I will accept that. It's the fact that we're going to be receiving tokens into 2027, I believe, which is not ideal. Maybe even 2028 actually. But yeah, it's one of those. It's crypto. Like, what you got to do. Unfortunately, we're in the same boat. I think these alpha deals are risky. Obviously, when they're associated with SwissBorg, you do treat them as less risky. But all we can do is kind of hope that the bull run. So there's two things. The bull run will have an enormous effect on some projects. The other thing is when we come off the back of the bull run, or maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, I've said it for years. At some point, crypto actually has to have utility. Like, people have to start using crypto. It has to be implemented in products. It has to be used for, like, look at XRP. Like, people need to start using the XRP ledger to transfer funds around the world in the billions and trillions. You look at any other project. If it's a gaming project, people actually have to use the game, or they have to use the gaming ecosystem. So, having said that, I think Galactica is a very unique project, digital identity. I think that could be a hot topic in the next couple of years. So if we do get to that adoption cycle, which I think we could get to, I think projects like Galactica could do very well. We're already seeing it with some of the AI plays. I think AI in crypto is going to be a dominant narrative over the next couple of years. And yeah, I would like to see Galactica hopefully do well out of that. So I'm not writing it off. It's frustrating, but yeah, I think, to be honest, getting $500 is better than some of the deals I've done over the last year. You look at Dark Machine and Favor, for example, not exactly ideal. So let's have a look at Grant. So Grant says he's down 75 to 90% on Opulus, Envy, and Flame. Is it realistic that these coins are ever going to catch a break? What kind of returns would you be looking at? So I think I put an update of Flame and CC Pro over the last few weeks. Opulus, I'm still very bullish on it doing some really decent returns. I've said this for a while. In terms of catching a break, the biggest thing, and I've said this all year, is it's nothing to do with the token necessarily. Obviously, there is some exceptions where the token is the problem. It's just this chart. Like, the others chart is not broken out. It's not broken above the March 2024 high. It's not broken above the December high. And it's not broken above its 2021 peak. The others chart is all of crypto minus the top 10. And it is massively lagging behind. Liquidity is not flowed into these assets, but it will. And the amount of liquidity flowing in is going to be huge because, one, we're going to see ETF inflows. They'll probably go into the top kind of 200 coins, which will have an effect on this chart. But what will happen is you'll get retail investors, you'll get people that then want to chase risk, and they're not going to buy something that's up 400, 500%. They're going to look at the other altcoins that are not in an ETF. They're not institutionally adopted. Things like Opulus. It's not going to have an ETF for Opulus. So for me, that's where this will play catch up and then fly beyond that. And it doesn't take a lot of capital to move these tokens. So I think we just kind of need to let the rotation play out. And yeah, I do think they'll all have, I definitely think you'll make profit, put it that way. But yeah, I just think everybody needs to kind of understand the market dynamics and the way the rotation works. Jamie, yes, so the strike, I believe, the strike preferential stock or whatever it's called on MicroStrategy, the 10% is sustainable because they can move capital. I can't really repeat it off the top of my head. I listened to a podcast explaining exactly how it works. So basically, they can guarantee the 10% return, but if Bitcoin exceeds that, they can offer more than 10%. So that's why right now it's 10.25% instead of 10%, because Bitcoin's price has performed so well. So it's all tied to the Bitcoin performance. Yeah, it's different to the Drift token. So Drift is a DeFi on Solana product. This is the one we're trading right now. Let's see. Price target for Borg, we've said for a while, we think it can eclipse kind of that $45 area. But I think, for me, I'm pretty confident it's going to do $4 or $5. I think it can go higher. When the CEO of the company is actively tweeting all the time saying that it's going to do $10, you've got to take it pretty seriously, I would say. No financial advice on that. Sean Mack, we did put an update in the project update section of CC Pro for Velo. Yeah, I can decentralize. I actually do. I genuinely believe that. I think if 200k worth of buy pressure came in to the Borg token over the next week or 2 weeks, then I just can't see how the token doesn't have a massive rally. Now, the one danger I would say is if it did, for example, tomorrow it goes to 150, I do think it will sell off and then they'll need to go again. So I think that's why they're not making the buys public. I think, they could do it any way they want. In my personal opinion, they'd be better to do it a constant buy. So rather than have massive flows of capital in, like a 50k buy on a Sunday night, I think they'd be better just saying, for the last 7 days, we accumulated $200,000. We're going to buy whatever that is divided by the number of hours in a week. So every hour there's like $200 worth of buy pressure. And then we just see the price grind up, only so that anyone can't just see the spike, sell it, and then everybody else kind of doesn't benefit. So yeah, we'll get more information on how they're going to do the buys though. Let's have a look. I think ETFs will go live this month. I don't think it'll be next year. I think ETFs will go live. I think ETFs will get the green light and they'll go live like a week later. I think it's pretty much a done deal, and the flowy capital will start coming. And then what will happen is retail will get wind of it, but the tokens will already be up 400-500%, and that's normally when you make a local top, in my opinion. So that is one important point that Deck brings up. If you're in Opulus right now, you can sit on your hands, but if you're down 95%, then you probably bought somewhere up here. I would be buying as much as I could to get my average buy down. Now, that is not financial advice, and also you need to weigh it up with your portfolio. So in the past, I've spoke to people who end up with a really skewed portfolio because they've done that. The one thing you would want to do is buy, if you look at the weekly candle, this looks like it could be a reversal candle. No guarantees, but that would be kind of a low and then a higher low. That kind of tells you the trend's changing. So if that's the case, then, Opulus moves really quickly. So if you're staying convicted, I would buy some at the lows. MV, obviously ridiculously cheap, and Flame. I think that was the three you gave me. But like it could go for any. I mean, LimeWire is the same. Like I think LimeWire, Inspect, Casta. Any chart that looks like this. If you're sitting on it and you're determined to see it out, which I wouldn't be selling at a loss. I would be buying at these lows to try and get the average price down, but then also you're going to be in profit quicker. So then if you want to trim some, you can trim it in the next couple of weeks as opposed to waiting 3 months or whatever, depending on your price. And I think that mentality of getting to green and being profitable as quick as possible is actually more important than the price. So yeah, I would look at that. All right, let's talk about... So, for anyone that's not in CC Pro, CC Pro is our private members community. We run a private members community on Discord. It's got daily members updates, TA, it's got a trading section. We do copy trading. There's a podcast. Everything is up to the minute, kind of need to know information. We provide members not only just like knowledge that they need to buy the right thing or understand how to do crypto. We've got tutorials, how to move money across exchanges, how to buy a certain project if it's on a DEX only, for example. We've got tutorials for everything, even how to trade, what different terms mean, how to use BloFin, which is our preferred trading partner right now. We've got pretty much everything you need to be successful, but more importantly than that is how not to lose money, how not to get wrecked, scammed. We see horror stories all the time of people doing crazy things, especially when euphoria hits the market. So one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is when there's a bear market and your portfolio's trending down and down and down, people just keep buying. That's great. That's exactly what you should do in a bear market. When your portfolio starts hitting those levels where it's moving by more than your yearly salary in a night, you go to bed and it drops by what you got paid last year. That is actually harder to deal with in a bear market, and people think bull runs are easy. Once your portfolio reaches that level where it's life-changing funds, people do crazy stuff. So we are in the chat room, we answer questions. We've also got a high net worth section called Alpha, where we do a weekly live stream Q&A. So if you're not in CC Pro, you're watching this stream, I highly recommend you take some action, you get into CC Pro. I guarantee you'll benefit from the daily knowledge, but also just having a group of people around you that are wanting to succeed and have the right mindset for taking profit. That would be my top tip for this bull run. And if you're going to make life-changing gains, then you want to make sure that you do it in the right way and you don't get wrecked by doing something stupid at the end of the bull run, because the bear market is coming, and don't believe the hype. Yeah, Shiv, there is ways to have multiple accounts, but yeah, I think you do have to log in and out. So I think with other exchanges, you can actually move between profiles quite easily. But for BloFin, I'm sure you need to log out and back in. I think it's to do with KYC, to be fair. But yeah, if you're not signed up to BloFin, no KYC, it's got some spot on it. We use it for trading predominantly. It's the best app for trading, in my opinion. It's so slick and less scammy than any of the other exchanges as well. Yeah, I do think Borg runs before Borgie, but it doesn't take much to move Borgie, so it will fly once it starts going. All right, I want to cover two charts. I think let's start with this chart. So let me pull this up. So, title of this video is, could Bitcoin run to 175k? So this might seem crazy, but let's discuss it. Let's see where we are at. So if we look at this chart pattern on the monthly, Bitcoin, to be fair, looks like it's in a massive cup and handle formation. So you would say that this would be the cup, and then you've got the handle here. So if that was the case, you would say that the target for this move is basically the depth of the cup. So let's show it here, and then we draw it up to here, and we can see Bitcoin's pretty much at that level right now. So we've pretty much achieved the move target for the cup and handle formation. So a lot of people are then saying, well, is this the top? But if we jump over to gold, we can see gold's done the exact same thing. So gold has actually already played out this pattern and a slightly longer time frame. But you can see this is the cup here, handle. Now, if we draw this here, we can see the gold actually went to the $3,000 level. That was the measured move. You can see we had a green box, so we pretty much nailed it. But gold has continued going. Now, if we copy this and paste it, we can actually see the gold has pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much there. Gold has pretty much doubled the cup and handle formation. So a lot of people think cup and handle on the monthly maybe unlikely to play out, but when we see it on gold, you can pretty much see first target nailed, and then the second target, we are literally 2% away from nailing 2x the cup formation on the cup and handle on gold. So if we jump back to Bitcoin, where does that put us? Let's draw this on here, and we can see, let me zoom out. We can see that puts us around the $175,000 level, 177,000, 175,000 is a better psychological level. So a lot of people are saying we're at the top. For me, I don't think we've got to the top. I don't think we topped before Q4. And I think that 175k doesn't actually look too unrealistic when you compare it to what gold has just done. Now, if you also then factor in the fact that gold always runs and then Bitcoin eclipses its performance, we could be set up for a massive run in Bitcoin over the next 90 days. And I think the big challenge is going to be people are going to underestimate how high things can go. They're going to sell early and then they're going to buy back in much higher. So something to pay attention to. I think it's actually achievable. I think if we look at the recent pullback, flushed a lot of leverage. You've got CZ on Twitter saying that Q4 is going to be amazing. You've got the Trump family telling you Q4 is going to be amazing. Eric Trump talking about QE. You've got Michael Saylor massively bullish, and then you've got huge institutional flows starting to flip bullish again. We could be set up for a mammoth Q4, and I think people are underestimating how high we get. So, wanted to share that because I think people will sell early, and I also think people are underestimating how high we can get and how much money is there to be made in this market over the next 90 days especially. So that's one chart to show. Alright, let's talk about, let's see. Is there any chance a bear market doesn't happen and crypto continues in an upwards trend? I think a bear market's pretty much confirmed. When it happens is probably still up for debate. The reason I'm convinced that we get one is because 99% of crypto's trash. So while I still think it'll run in the bull run, I think we're getting to the point where the market needs to mature. Like the crypto market needs to mature. Regulations coming in. Institutions are starting to get involved. I think we will see adoption of crypto, especially as it relates to AI. So I do think there's going to be no real space for some of the stuff that just doesn't make money, have users. I also think the tokenization movement is going to be massive for the space. So stocks being tokenized, data being tokenized, energy being tokenized, on top of the fact that startups and private equity is going to be tokenized. I just don't see space for some stuff that just has zero impact in the world, has no revenue, no users, just launched at a good time in 2021 and is kind of hung about. On top of that, I think the big chain war will probably kick off soon. I don't see why we have so many chains. I think that will be a big driver of the bear market as well. So yeah, I just can't see not having it. It's cycles. It's just business cycles. Money flows in, money flows out. I think, yeah, we'll definitely see that. All right, I want to talk about blockchain backer, and the reason I want to talk about it is because I am actually a massive fan. I think blockchain backer has called a lot of things right over the last few years, but I also think his analysis is really good. He's normally really consistent, but he's obviously got a lot of people talking online about, is he right, is he wrong, are we at the top, are we not? So yeah, I think we're just going to cover it briefly, but the important thing is I actually think he's right more than he's wrong, and I think he's getting absolutely hammered for no real, like, you're allowed to be wrong. Not everybody's right all the time. And the other thing is, you're not paid to be right, you're paid to make money. So I am pretty sure, even though he sold a massive chunk of his portfolio, he's still wedged. Even 50% of his portfolio hits his goals, he's still going to make millions. So it's hardly like it's going to affect him long term. But basically, around a week and a half ago, he basically said he was selling a third of his crypto holdings. The reason Total 2 was struggling to break out, Russell 2000 was struggling to break out, and he was taking a defensive play. Now, the reason this mostly came up was because of a few indicators, which we will show on stream. So he is right to a certain degree that there is some similarities. So basically what he was trying to compare was 2021 to right now. So in 2021 we obviously peaked in April, and then we went on to put in a second peak in November before crashing. What he is right about is, I remember November 2021, well, the run up to November 2021, and no one thought that crypto would not go to 100k or Bitcoin wouldn't go to 100k. Every person was calling for 100k. All the influencers, all the big names in the space were calling for 100k. And as you can see, BCB's biggest theory is that we were putting in lower highs on the RSI. We were also putting in a bearish divergence on the MACD. And guess what? We are now doing the exact same. So to be fair, it does have a certain point. Where I would contradict him is we are putting in a bearish divergence on the RSI as we move higher. However, back in 2021, we were putting in lower lows at the same time. So we're putting in a low, lower low, lower low, lower low. This time, we've actually put in equal lows just here, and now a higher low just here. So there is a divergence there, and I think that's one thing he's ignoring. The second thing is the stochastic RSI was just about to roll over, so we were massively overbought on the stochastic RSI in November 2021. It was screaming, it was at 97 or 98 out of 100, massively overbought, and then we went into a massive plunge. We've already had that plunge, and that was the July move. So if we were back here and BCB was saying what he's saying now, he would be correct. And we did. We went into a big plunge. We dropped July 14%. We dropped into that kind of August, September low. And that was this move on the stochastic. So based on that, I think I can see similarities. But based on that, I think we're actually starting to trend back up on the stochastic RSI. On the actual RSI, we are just inches away from a breakout higher, and we're putting in higher lows. And then on the MACD, you can see we're starting to trend up. So I've had loads of DMs about BCB. Is he right? Are we at the top? Are we peaking? Should other people be selling? The other thing is the MACD was flipping from bullish to bearish back in November 2021. We are about to flip from bearish to bullish. So I see where he's drawn some of the similarities. For me, I think he's potentially got in his own head. I disagree that we're at the top. I hate the phrase "this time is different" because normally it's not. But on this occasion, I do think he's ignoring some screaming signs. The other one would be the Russell. So the Russell 2000 is putting in new all-time highs. I think we probably get a breakout of that in the next 2 weeks. And gold is screaming that we go much higher in Bitcoin, because this is going to eventually top. It's going to move sideways, cool off, and that's when Bitcoin really rallies, because Bitcoin always chases and catches up. So for me, I don't think the top's in. I think we have much higher to go. I think the more people that scream the top's in is actually bullish, and I think with all the things coming in the next quarter, right now being bearish would be crazy. But that's my opinion. I just kind of wanted to talk about BCB because so many people are giving him a hard time. I think people are allowed to be wrong. People are allowed to get things wrong. It's just a probabilities game. TA charting is probabilities. It's not science. It's not fact. It's probabilities, and people can see their bias in the charts. If you flip bearish, it's very hard to flip bullish again straight away. So yeah, I think everybody just needs to lay off him. But we got loads of DMs, loads of questions about it. So we did kind of want to say where we saw the differences in the market. On top of that, I just think he's also ignoring the macro signs. People saying that the Fed funds rate, when we start cutting, normally leads to a stock market correction. Yeah, it did in 2008, and it did in COVID. 2008 was a massive crisis, and COVID was a pandemic. Unless something like that happens, I think the Fed is in a cutting cycle. The other thing I wanted to show, just to get everybody super bullish, hopefully, is this here. Because this looks very similar. I've showed it before, this chart on the screen. But this is 2017. 2017 Q4 was massively bullish. So we could talk about 2021 all we want, but if we look at 2017 Q4 was insane. And we also had that pullback that we've just had. So September we pulled back, and then from the 25th of September, in the next 77 days, so less than 3 months, we rallied over 400%. Absolute monster move. That is where all the ICO stage came. Altcoins peaked a month later. So altcoins actually peaked in this red candle here and into this move here. So we're looking at 2021 and saying Q4 2021 was bearish, so this time could be bearish. We need to look at 2017 as well. And 2017 was massive for the crypto market. So yeah, like I say, big fan of BCB, but I think the amount of people that think we're at the top probably tells me we're not. We've not had that euphoric stage. Tops aren't created when everybody's nervous and fearful, and we have so much building towards the end of the year that I think it's going to leave a lot of people behind, in my opinion. All right, let's jump out the chat. Let's see what else is happening. When will MicroStrategy get added to the S&P 500? I think it'll be probably the end of this quarter. I think they only do it once a quarter. So it'll probably be the end of the quarter. So yeah, it could be, depending on the price move over the next kind of few months. That'll determine where we're at. VeChain, somebody asked in the chat, looking, yeah, just pretty much the same as a lot of altcoins, just consolidating, struggling to break out. I think if we do get that breakout of total 3 this week, then we could see some altcoins start to catch up. But in terms of zooming out, you can see loads of upside potential, holding these lows, not made any new lows this cycle. So well, since September 2023. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of patience to let Bitcoin run, top altcoins, and then the rest will flow down. Let's have a look. Loki's saying 3-tap reversal. You think the top could be in? Fair enough. Decentralized wants to use a DEX for Borg, so you could use Radium or Jupiter or Meteora, or you could just swap it on Phantom. Mike's asking if, I think what you're asking is basically if everybody takes profit on Borg around $2, will the altcoin market still be cheap enough to rotate, or will they already be overheated? I think that's what you're asking. In my opinion, no. I think Borg is going to go on a run very soon. I think 150 is too cheap for Borg, personally. But obviously, everybody has to do what's right for them, and you could rotate some profit into lower hanging altcoins. I think the others chart has got probably a while before it properly breaks out. Like, it's still, I mean, I think we're still at the 50% retracement. Let's have a look. Yeah, so we've not even cleared the 618 level yet. So the others chart still has loads of room to go before it breaks out. So yeah, I think the market will still be relatively cheap, especially if these buybacks start coming in and actually start hitting price. I'll maybe try and get an update on when the buys begin, when they're actually happening, and how they're happening. I think they'll be, I actually think they'll make it pretty public and it'll be on chain, so you'll be able to track the buys. So yeah, I think $2 is, yeah, I think we'll get there pretty quick. This is the Robinhood chart as well. So for anyone that doesn't know, Robinhood got added to the S&P 500 here, and it's currently up 50%. So what does that do to the MicroStrategy price, especially if Bitcoin's higher than that? Yeah, we could cover SwissBorg actually. I think I've said before, I think it'll do $1 billion market cap. So that puts it to $1 in price. It's going to have these moves. I think we will see that flow effect. So as Borg rises, I do think we'll see XBorg and Borgie get pumps from that as well. Simply because people are going to come onto the app, they're going to look at buying Borg, and then they're going to maybe say, oh, Borg's already up, I don't know, whatever it is, 200% in the last couple of months. I'm going to buy something else, and XBorg and Borgie would be good buys. So I do think we'll see that. And then also I do think we'll see constant profit taking. Some people have been holding Borg. Let's go to the weekly. You know, if you've been buying Borg and holding it since kind of down here, then you're still up 6x on your money. A 6x is solid profit. So some people might lock that in, regardless of what we say and regardless of what Cyrus tweets. A 6x is 6x, and people could rotate into XBorg and Borgie now. But for me, I think Borg is the safe bet. It's got the buy pressure. It's not going anywhere, and I think it'll go much harder and longer than any of them. Yeah, still bullish on XRP. I think XRP will do, I think like $9. I think, like I say, I think it's waiting on that institutional capital to really send the altcoin market. I think XRP will be a big winner of ETFs. I also think the CTO leaving is bullish. So I've saw a lot of negative headlines about him leaving. I covered this on the last stream, but basically, you normally make big board decisions ahead of going public or an IPO. So it doesn't surprise me that he's moved now. The timing doesn't surprise me. Plus, as the CTO, he's probably achieved everything he needs to achieve with the token. So yeah, I think you'll be fine. Let's have a look and see what else is happening. Yeah, well, I think. So I think the other thing you have to remember is, what will these market caps be? You know, if this is 4 trillion, the amount of capital that's actually in crypto at that point will eclipse anything anybody's ever seen. So, you know, I suppose it's kind of the same as if we look at, let's use Cardano as an example. You know, if you were holding Cardano at, what, 3 cents, would you think it would get to $3? That's 100x. Probably not. And I still don't know who uses Cardano. I don't know who holds Cardano. I don't know who uses Cardano. But Cardano done 100x. And not a lot of time either. So, yeah. I guess it's similar. No one down here. People were probably saying the same down here. Like, there's no way Cardano's going to get to that market cap. And then it did. Same with most altcoins. If you go back to these days down here, take that off the screen. Did anyone think Solana would go from 66 cents to now trading at over $225? Probably not. I think that's the mental thing about crypto, is it can eclipse your wildest expectations to the upside. So yeah. Market having a little bit of pullback. Like we said at the start, this is normally actually not a bad thing on a Sunday night before the futures open. So US futures should open, I think, about 11 o'clock UK time. And with this bullish close on Friday, I think it could be quite an important futures open. Sunday nights are a bit awkward as well because you do have all the financial markets open. Sometimes we just get crazy price moves and then it'll correct during market hours tomorrow. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 24 hours. The shutdown in the US is going to bring fresh liquidity as well. Nobody's really talking about that, but the shutdown has helped drop the yields. So if we look at the weekly, the 10-year was trading under 4% at one point. I think that's going to be bullish. I think rate cuts, we'll definitely see another rate cut in October. Market's pricing in 2. Could we get a bigger rate cut? It wouldn't surprise me. And the shutdown's going to help drive that, in my opinion. Yeah, I think Wesley, I think we'll do $1. I don't know what that translates into pounds, but yeah, I think we'll do $1. And I saw this come up, to be fair, I meant to do it earlier. Is that the right chart? Let's see. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, at support, it can always dip lower. I don't really like trading new coins, so anything that's just listed, I think there's loads of manipulation. There's a couple of reasons why there's loads of manipulation. One, the order books are thin and the liquidity's thin, but also I've heard stories of new projects having to like trade their own token, so they'll short the token and dump supply into the market, crashing the price, but they make money off that because most projects are pretty skint at the start because they've spent all their money. So yeah, just be careful with new tokens, because I've heard a lot of scammy stuff going on where they'll list a token on Binance and then they'll sell spot and short the market at the same time. So yeah, they'll sell their supply while shorting the market. So yeah, just be careful with new tokens. Aster, I mean, look at this chart. Like, you could get caught out both ways. And then World Liberty Fi seems to have found the support. I'll give them that. It looks like potentially an uptrend as well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would honestly be so careful trading, especially trading. It's different if you're just going to buy. Like, if you want to hold World Liberty Fi as spot and you see it long term as a potential, then now's probably a decent place to buy because it's pretty low. It looks like it's fine support, kind of 3 rising valley type formation, potentially uptrend. So not a terrible place to buy. Aster down 11% on the day. Not a terrible place to buy. Anything that dumps 10%, probably not a bad day to buy. But if you're wanting futures trade it with leverage, you need to be so careful. I mean, like this candle here would have just liquidated millions of people. This candle here, and then you're just gambling that one of these green candles comes in while you're in position. So, yeah, there's so many opportunities in the market that you don't really have to risk it with something that's just launched in the last week or so. That would be my advice. But yeah, the market looks so cheap. I've said before, I think Polkadot looks incredible. Uptrend still intact. The daily chart obviously coming back to the 200 MA might give people a decent entry because it's also a resistance area. This 200 MA at 405 was a previous resistance. Now it could be support and the 200 MA, and it's in an uptrend. It looks like it's kind of coiling up. Could be in a bigger downtrend as well. So yeah, looks pretty nice to me. I think it's got some huge upside. But yeah, that is all for tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, we have a huge weekly candle close coming up more importantly, the weekly futures opening. If we can get a bit of a bounce and close above 123k for the week, that would be ideal. And then on to new all-time highs in the next week or so. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not in CC Pro, the link is in the description, and I'll be back later this week with more live streams. And if you're in CC Pro, I'll catch you very soon.